You know, I love working on audio and video equipment like this on my channel, though I probably have enough, it has to be said.
But did you tell Mum that you weren't going to get any more?
Yes. Why?
A nice chap left these for you.
A nice chap? Oh, right. What do we have? You say these. So this, oh, wow, could never turn this down. This is a Sony SL-HF100 Beta HiFi video recorder. I've got a couple of these. This was one of the best Betamax machines ever made. They give really good picture and sound. I absolutely love SHF100. I wonder if it works. We'll have to work on that. Oh, crikey. Oh, wow! Do you know what this is? This is a Sony EVS-9000E, the pinnacle of hi-8 edit decks. They can be a bit unreliable. Let's see if it works, shall we? I'm really looking forward to having to play with that one. It looks beautiful.
And
okay,
this.
There's more? Oh my goodness. Right. What's this? This, complete with remote control, is a Sony Minidisc recorder. Oh, I've got lots to play with. Thank you, Scott. There isn't any more, is there?
Well, there is one more.
Oh, really? Right. Oh, that's wonderful. Let's have a look. PAL and NTSC. Just what I needed. This is a Laserdisc player. I have quite a lot of NTSC Laserdisc players, but only one PAL one. So having another PAL one is extremely useful. It's a great backup. So we have lots of great equipment to play with here. Thank you, Scott. Okay, let's start testing some of this beautiful equipment.
Somebody else has dropped these in.
Oh, right. There's more? So this, it's got some tapes and is a professional DVCAM camera and camcorder. Oh, wow. We've got some lovely gear to play with, haven't we? What a wonderful collection of goodies. I think we're going to start with the Laserdisc player. So this is model CLD1750, and what makes this useful to me is its NTSC and PAL. But before we get too excited about the front, let's have a look at the back. So usefully also is digital audio out. So on the odd occasion I've been asked to capture digital audio from a Laserdisc in full lossless quality, and this allows you to do that. Optical output here can go via an optical to SPDIF adapter unit, I've got plenty of those, and be recorded directly to one of my Tascam digital audio recorders. So we have composite video out, left and right, analog and the digital out, and two SCARTs. Why two? They're both marked in and out, so presumably you can loop through something like another device into this and then that out to your TV. But I've done some research, I've looked at the user manual. It's composite video here, it's still only composite video on the SCART as well. There's no RGB, there's not even S-video, and that would have been useful. So that's a bit of a markdown for that, because S-video would have potentially given us better video capture quality, although, it has to be said, the format itself is only a composite recording, and if I go from that to one of my digital time-based correctors with digital comb filter, it's likely to be as good as the S-video output on one or two other models anyway. Right, let's have a look at the front of the machine. So this is also a CD player, so that's a good thing, because as well as being able to play CDs, I think it means it can play video CDs, which would be nice. So it's got a remote control input. We didn't have the remote control with it, but I have a little collection of Pioneer Laserdisc remotes, so I'm fairly sure one of those will work. I just need to go find them and find which one works with this machine. And we have a sort of a jog and shuttle thing going on here. Right, I'm going to plug it in. I'll use a SCART connector to the TV, and we'll try an NTSC and a PAL Laserdisc with it. The plug gives away its age. It has the non-insulated pins, and the manufacture date is 1992. So it goes straight into standby when it's powered up. I think when I switch it on, it will take over the TV. Yes. It's flashing LD, CD and CDV. So CDV it will play. Okay. Let's hit eject and then pop in a Laserdisc. Where's the eject button? And it takes 3 disc sizes because you could get Laserdisc in a smaller size. The thing that confuses me still, I think, about this is side 1 here. It says side 1, but that's not side 1. It plays underneath. So this is side 2. So it tells us it's Laserdisc in PAL. And is working straight away. And I can do chapter searches. Let's see that it's working all the way through. I think we go +10 and go straight to chapter 10. I'm not sure how many chapters there are on this one. It's fairly slow to search. And of course this is not a double-sided machine. So if I hit pause, because on some Laserdiscs you can get a pause and on others you can't. It depends how it's been recorded. Constant linear velocity ones are not freeze frame and the constant angular ones are freeze frame compatible. Now they could have done it with memory in the machine, but it doesn't have memory. So in that respect it's a fairly simple analog affair, but it does have digital audio capability, digital audio track capability. And I've asked to go to the 14th chapter, and that's all working fine. Good. Let's try an NTSC disc. So this time it tells us NTSC, play side A. So it knows it's on side A. If I press the system button, it can output in PAL. That won't be real PAL, will it? Be NTSC 4.43. But the TV copes with that just fine. I'd say the colours are a little bit more washed out in the PAL operation mode. But, you know, at least it does it. And again, no freeze frame on this disc. If I give it a gentle nudge, will it close? Yes. That's a lovely machine. I am most certainly going to use this one. I may get it to take over actually where my present NTSC and PAL machine is. Because my present one, the machine I'm presently using as my Laserdisc player for NTSC and PAL, has the potential for the RF output modification, which is the Doomsday Project electronics, to be added to it. So maybe now I can afford to take the risk and do that modification with that machine now that I have a backup NTSC and PAL machine. The one last thing I'd like to do before putting any piece of equipment into service in my studio, I don't think I've shown this before, but I always like to have a look in the mains plug. Okay, in this case we're running without the sleeved pins, but make sure it's wired up properly, it's cable clamped down, and it has something like a sensible fuse rating in there. And this one is 5 amp, which is a little generous, but this cable should be able to blow a 5 amp fuse in the eventuality that it were damaged or short-circuited at the end. Very often they've got 13 amp fuses in them, and in that case the cable might catch fire first. So we're ready to use that one. That can be installed in the studio. I love this machine. This to me might be the pick of the crop of that batch of equipment that was given to me. I really am pleased with this. Right, if that Laserdisc player is the most exciting item in the list, this is probably the least exciting, and it's not because it's a mini-disc recorder, it's because of which model it is. Because it's a fairly low model, JE500, so, and a slightly older one. So it doesn't support long play, it doesn't support NetMD, it doesn't support HiMD, it doesn't have a keyboard input so you can name tracks and stuff, which can be useful. So all you've got is optical in and out and analog in and out at the back, and that's your lot. And an interesting place for an on-off switch. Why did they fit that? So let's just give it a spin. So power up, in standby. It's still flashing standby. Why? How long is it going to flash that for? And we do have the remote control for this one. No batteries in it at the moment. Is it just going to sit there saying standby until I take it out of standby? That's quite annoying. Press the on button then. No disc. Okay, we'll pop in a disc. Table of contents reading. It's taking a long time. Taking a very long time. Eject, and it's not ejecting. It appears to have died. Put it back into standby. It's not flashing standby anymore. Hit eject and just see if it'll eject the tape, the disc. I may have to power cycle it. Hit eject now. Come on. It's not doing anything. How much work is it worth putting into this? Shall we have a quick look and see if it's something we can quickly get going again? Might just be a drive belt issue, but I don't think so. Not much to it. It looks like it was designed that it could easily be sort of a MIDI size. There's an awful lot of empty space in this. There's a battery there. Should we just have a look at the battery voltage? 3.2 volts. So that's fine. Just going to nudge this motor. Yep, that's running fine. Power cycle it again. Okay, it did something when I moved that motor. Maybe we can eject now. Or maybe not. I can manually eject it, it seems. I've still got power on, so I could lose my fingers doing this. Be a bit careful. Okay, so I'm able to manually get the disc out. There we go. One disc out. Power cycle. Dare we put the disc back again? Yes, why not? It's not gone down. It's not gone down to read it. I'll switch it off again. And okay, so we can do that. It can shuffle back into a position, but not actually read the disc. Okay, I'm just going to have to manually wind it out again. It's got some kind of fault with the mechanism. Right. And given that it's such a poverty spec device, I think we will call that a day on that particular one, and I'll explain further why I have got a better solution for Minidisc anyway. So for recovery of audio from Minidisc, I now use this, my original Minidisc Portable, because there's a project called Web Minidisc Pro, and it does a lot more than was originally possible with a USB interface. So That's a mini USB socket. Plug it into a PC, run Web Minidisc Pro, and you can extract the data digitally from the Minidisc. Standard play and long play, and with the track titles and track splits. And even with a digital process, digital audio capture from Minidisc, you do lose the track splits and track titles. So one of these are ideal, but of course keeping these working is not easy. But this does work fine. This is one I bought brand new. I've had to do a little bit of work on the power supply for it, but it's otherwise fine. Of course, the battery's knackered. The little battery in here, oh, I've removed it already. The chewing gum batteries, they just die a death. But that's my preferred route now. My only problem being I only have one of these. So if anybody has a working or non-working NetMD machine, do let me know. I could be very interested in that. Right, on for Minidisc. Let's play with another gadget. So next, let's try Beta HiFi. A nice clean and tidy example of the Sony SL-HF100. Oh, these are lovely machines. Let's see what state this one's in. Okay, we'll start by just powering it up. There's an on-off switch at the back, which is in the on position. And nothing. Check that on-off switch again. Totally dead. Okay, let's quickly take the lid off and see what we can find inside. Might be a blown fuse. If there is a blown fuse, it'll probably be blown for a good reason. Okay, here's our fuse. Let's try that one. Fuse is okay. Let's check that we have a path down to the mains plug. Let's check if we have a path to the mains plug. Yes. That eliminates any wiring fault or switch or fuse in the plug. So I'm looking at a bad power supply, I think, which is most probably the regulator chip, STK, whichever model number it is in this one. Ah, right. These have a switch mode power supply. It's not a linear STK type chip. So the power supply has probably died. That's possibly a slightly non-trivial repair. We start by just taking out the power supply and having a look to see if there's anything obvious burnt up in there. I do vaguely remember having had to swap out the power supply in one of these some years ago. Okay, that's power supply out. I'd actually removed a couple of screws I didn't need to as well. But now I'll need to remove those screws anyway, so I can gain some access to the bottom of the board. Before I go too far in, I'm just going to have a look at the output of the rectifier here, which should feed into this capacitor. If we have some voltage on that, even though it's unplugged now, then that tells us we've got DC up to here and the chopper's not working. Just a fraction of a volt there. Okay, that doesn't tell us much. I mean, if I'd seen sort of 400 volts there, then that would have told us something. But no. You can't read anything into that because it could be a discharge resistor in there, although most don't. But it could mean that the chopper is working and the fault is later on. Okay, that's going to be a non-trivial repair. I'll need to take it all apart and refer to the service manual. So we'll leave this machine for the time being. That's going to be a repair job and we'll come back to it later. Hopefully this power supply won't mind being run with little or no load on it and I can just test it, as is. we'll have to see what the normal cause of that fault is as well. Alright, so we'll come back to that one later. Bit of a nuisance because it means I've got a video recorder cluttering the place up. Okay, let's try the EVS 9000. I've said in the past that this was probably the most complex domestic video recorder ever sold in the UK, and I'm going to stand by that. I can't think of anything else. No remote control on this one, but that's fine. I have some spare remote controls for this. So this is one with a slide out tray. It's got digital time-based corrector, PCM digital audio, pretty much everything they could throw at it. And of course lots and lots of capacitors to fail. Right, dare I even switch this on? Here you go, switch it on. And that looked correct. Switch it on. Beep 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 means set the clock. Open the front panel. Okay. The lower display is blank. And anybody who knows these machines knows exactly what's that caused that. There's a DC to DC converter section just about here in there, and the capacitor dried out in that. So that won't stop us testing some more of the machine anyway. Let's connect it to this TV and pop a tape in. Let's start with just going into the menus. The menu's working? Yes. All looking good. Okay, let's see if it mechanically runs. Making some good EVS 9000 sounds. I heard dit. So it seems to be working, but I think it may have a broken reel table. Hear that noise? So it's the supply spool. It's the supply side that's broken, which is a pain to change because you lose the back tension setting. And of course the big problem being getting hold of any. The stereo struggling, saying main stereo, main stereo, main stereo. Why is it doing that? Continuously flickering, main stereo, main stereo. That is not good. Well, it's mistracking a bit actually, so it could potentially be something to do with the deck. It could be just a alignment problem or back tension problem. Let's try high speed rewind. Oh, it sounds awful, doesn't it? Definitely a broken reel table. And eject. So there are some things to fix on that. Where would I start? I don't know if I've got any of those reel tables left. Let's have a quick look. So I reckon it's the supply one that's broken. Right, what parts do I have? Some of these are not new. I have pinch roller. That's a typical broken one. So that's a supply spool, and you can see the crack in it. They do that. So that's a second-hand one, clearly. There's another broken one. So what's the supply spool? Which side is that? I think that's that one. So that's supply spool and that's broken. Although the break in that one's quite small. Yeah, the supply side has the smooth surface there, which is what the back tension band sits on. That's really badly broken, that one. That is absolutely falling to pieces. Another one there that's broken in two places. I've made a point of not throwing these out in case they come in handy. This is take up, this one, and that's brand new in its packet, never been opened, though that doesn't mean it hasn't failed. So yeah, I don't have a brand new supply spool, but I do have one that's potentially better than the one that's in there. So we could fit that, but we're stuck with these other problems possibly. It is apparently possible to repair these somehow. I don't know. But at least we have one there that is potentially better than the one that's in the machine. So we might fit that. And And of course I need to do the display, but my biggest concern is what looks like mistracking, and that might be the reason that we're suffering from the audio switching between stereo and main. I'd have to look at if there's a problem on the deck. Plenty to do on this one. Not sure if I want to take this apart just now when we've got the Beta HiFi in bits already. I've taken the power supply out the Beta HiFi SLHF 100 to do some quick checks on it. I know it's not ideal being out of the case and unloaded, but let's just do a few tests. I've been trying to work out what could possibly be wrong with this power supply and eventually realised there's probably nothing wrong with it. Okay, it's unloaded, which isn't ideal, but looking at the unswitched 12 volt line, yeah, it's unswitched 12 volt line, so, and that's after the switch mode operation here. So I think the power supply is probably okay. I better reassemble this and put it back in the machine to do some more tests. I will apply a little deoxit to the power switch because I've read that these can fail. Okay, I've refitted the power supply and it's switched on at the back there. I guess I should just power it up again and see that it's still dead. Oh! That's not dead. However, the clock is. So that's interesting. Oh, let's hook it up to the monitor and see what happens. Anybody else out there as excited as I am to see what this does? Okay, no display. Oh, there is a display. It's coming back up. Look. It's just super faint. Okay, well, we may be able to solve that later. Okay, let's put in a tape and see if it loads. Fast forward. I always try and fast forward and rewind first. And play. And good pictures. Bad VU meters. Let's try a Beta HiFi tape and confirm that we have a Beta HiFi light on. Went in like a sack of spuds. And we have Beta HiFi, and you can see the VU meters operating independently. I'll turn that light off out of the way. But you can see that the first 3 segments of the LEDs are not working. Try the tracking, swing it to one end and the other. Very tolerant tracking. Really good heads. Right. And really great that the Beta HiFi is working. So what to do? The display might just improve a bit on its own because it hasn't been used for a long time potentially. I do have a scrap Beta HiFi. The display's one issue and the VU meters. The first 2 segments of the VU meters not working. Yeah, interesting that when you hit stop they do work and when you hit play they don't. So it's like when the 3rd segment is activated the first 2 go in sympathy. Minus infinity is lit and for just a moment when I hit play you'll see something at the first few segments, and then once the higher segments start up you lose these. So it's like once it hits the minus 30 dB it takes out the minus 40. See? Now you could say, well, that's cosmetic, but I have often wondered, could we fabricate a display that would fit and work in there, that would look right and could be calibrated correctly to replace these defective VU meters? Because they fail a lot is due to a chip that's mounted physically on the board as a glob chip that's sort of glued onto the board. So you'd have to throw the board away and start again. Be fun though, wouldn't it, to see if we could engineer a replacement? A lot of work for a cosmetic issue, but one day someone's going to do it, I'm sure. Okay, we've had some fun playing with all those machines that came from one particular donation. So let's have a look at this last remaining item. Nice. Now you will have seen me working before on my professional video cameras. I've got a digital Betacam and an HDV. Let me go and show you those. So here's my serious camera. The Sony digital Betacam takes tapes like this, which happen to be mechanically interchangeable with domestic Betamax tapes. This is a wonderful camera, but it is only standard definition. It does produce really good results if you know what you're doing, which for the most part I don't. By the way, there may be a piece missing here that your eye is supposed to go against. So if anybody knows where I could source one of those without spending lots of money, please let me know. So this is a thing I picked up cheap some time ago. I had to add a microphone and a viewfinder, which I had to source from elsewhere. Note also that the battery on this is compatible with the next camera I'm going to show you. Okay, so this one's a bit more modern. It's a JVC HDV camcorder, does 720p resolution and standard definition, recording onto mini DV tapes, or DVCAM tapes, small DVCAM tapes. And that takes the same batteries as the big Sony. This is a kind of professional camera, but it's not quite what you'd call a broadcast camera. Not really. You may remember I had to slightly fix or bodge something on here. There's an adjustment here labelled uppercase F and lowercase f, and it sets the focus tracking as you zoom in and out, and you should be able to just do up a little lock nut and hold it in place. And some previous owner had over cranked it and split the collar that it sits in, so there was no way of repairing that, so I just had to glue it in place. But that's fine as long as it stays on this camera. The focal the way it does the focusing isn't going to change as long as it stays on the same camera. So anyway, that's my HDV, and that takes mini DV tapes. So what's this little camera? Well, this also takes mini DV tapes, records in the DVCAM format. Have a pop-out screen, but it feels a little bit more like a souped-up handy cam, and I think probably a great many of you people will say it is just a souped-up handy cam. Is this really professional grade camera? Well, we'll find out in a minute. What goodies do we have in the bag? So we have quite a number of tapes. These are Panasonic tapes. Okay, should work fine with the Sony camera. We have some kind of charger system, a very large battery pack, very large for its outline, mains cable. That's it. And it's had something connected here, maybe a wireless receiver at some point. This has autofocus, so it does make you feel a bit like it's a handy cam, though there are definitely times I wish that the DigiBeta had autofocus. Sometimes it could be a bit of a battle. But we have here a neutral density filter, so we have some control over setting the depth of field. Something that really sets it apart from domestic camcorders is the audio, because here we can select line or microphone inputs with or without 48 phantom power, and they're on balanced inputs, not just a jack plug. And I really wish the camera that we're recording this on, which is a Sony 4K, had a proper audio input. But, you know, it's too small. That's the reason. They don't have enough space physically on the machine. So, how do we power this? It looks like we can only power it from batteries. Yes, okay. Is this some stupid proprietary Sony only memory stick thing going on there? That feels a bit handy-camish, doesn't it? And that battery there will work with many Sony cameras, for example, Digital 8. But this is a much higher capacity one, and I think that's the sort of thing you should have on this camera. In fact, that battery will probably also work with the very light that's just here. I've got a Niwa light here, and I think that will take the same kind of battery. Okay, let's see how this battery charger works. This also has an output connector, so I dare say If this is the one that came with the camera, there would have been a cable or probably a dummy battery that goes from here to that outlet, but it's missing. How do I eject the battery? Like that. So this won't have been charged, it probably won't work. But it might. Okay, that's charging the battery, and I'm desperately searching for the on-off switch on this thing. We should be able to hit eject even if it's off. Let's try that. Okay, let's put in a brand new tape. It says push there, so I'll push there. Oh, you push to close on that one. I wonder if it has the ability to generate colour bars internally. Most professional cameras do. Switch it to camera. Okay, the CCD is working. That's a promising start. We have zebra stripes on, but we could also just go autofocus. Also, there's a switch to infinity, so you can quickly get to infinity for long distance, which is time saving and helpful. I like that feature. We're going to quickly go through some of the menus and see if we've got colour bars on here. A lot of this feels very familiar. These menus look just what you'd see on a Handycam sort of thing, a Digital 8 or something. There must be some more sophisticated menu settings in here. And just like on a Digital 8 or similar, this control wheel, these encoders are absolutely rubbish. They always seem to fail. Yeah, it's terrible. Terrible. They always end up that state. Bounces around all over the place. Colour bars. Okay, so that's something we don't see on a domestic one. Oh, it's bouncing something terrible. There we go. Hours meter. Wow. 210 hours ever. 110 hours on the drum. Tape running, 80 hours. It's all but new, this thing. So we're recording colour bars now. What sound does it record when you've got colour bars? We'll find out in a minute. It's set to record channel 1 and 2 on both channels at the moment. Mono from that single microphone. Mic level with the 48 phantom power on. Okay, we'll stop that and switch to VCR mode. And rewind, which is these buttons at the top. Oh, these feel a lot like you get on some Digital 8 camcorders. We have a head clog or something seriously wrong because we did not record colour bars on both of the heads. That's not good, is it? We may need a head cleaner tape, or we may have a serious fault. Oh look, it worked in the end, I think. So it must have cleaned the heads up on its own. Oh well, okay. These bouncy encoders are just the pits. Wouldn't you think for this level of equipment they might have chosen a better switch? And we'll try it again since we've rewound it, and that's working fine now, I think. Yeah. So there wasn't really a fault. What's the small viewfinder like? Let's find out. It's black and white. I'm actually rather surprised at that. So what do you suppose is in there? Is that LCD or is it a small CRT? Any way to find out? Release, it says. So I released it and nothing released. I can see the point of having a monochrome display if it's a CRT, because you can get higher resolution on that, or if it's an extremely high resolution LCD. But the reason that people want the black and white viewfinders is because potentially it can be higher resolution than the colour ones, and then you can focus more accurately. So it's a sweet little camera, but is it particularly useful today? I'd say not particularly, because it's only DV, it's only standard def. It's not much better than using a high-end handycam type thing. Well, that's how I'd see it. What do you think? Is there any purpose in a device like this today, or is that just obsolete, really? Even more obsolete than the digital Betacam, which is also only standard definition, but does it, you know, to an extremely high standard, better lenses, and much, much lower compression on the tape. Tell me what you think, you know. So that's let's look at the model number again, DSR-PD170P. It says for home or office use. I think that's more a matter of the FCC compliance rather than that they're saying it's professional and domestic. Right, so what I'll do, I'll take some footage with this one and we can all have a look at it. Should I deinterlace it? I probably should. And then we can have a quick look at that and decide if it's any good. So we made some recordings with this, just a few seconds, and two small issues came up. One was that there's a bit of a dot on the screen, and that was cured by cleaning this lens here. So I didn't even notice that this was fitted initially, but that's a wide angle lens with, I think it's a 58mm thread, which is a shame because that means it's not compatible with the 55mm thread on this camera you're using now. But it does look as though with a suitable adapter ring that would work, possibly. The other issue was there was no sound. So we had no sound. Now, it's not clear to me what went wrong there. Let's have a look at the settings. Looking at the audio settings here, you can record channel 1 and 2 or channel 1 only. And we're plugged into channel 2. So if that switch had been incorrectly set to channel 1, we would have had no audio. But it was set to 1 and 2. The input level is set to mic, that's correct. And the 48 volt phantom power is selected on, that's correct. And then these are settings, that's for input number 1. We're on input number 2. That's mic, that's correct. And that's 48 volts on, that's correct. So all those settings look right, regardless of which of these we were plugged into. Well, do we have any VU meters on this? There must be VU meters somewhere. Audio level. Press the audio level button. So we have VU meters visible now. How do we adjust the VU meter? Let's try the other input. Any sound? Oh, now we have sound. Oddly enough, it's coming up on both channels, even though we're selected here, channel 1 and 2. Surely with nothing plugged into the other input, it should only be on channel 1. Surely I'd need this switch in that position to give us it. Oh, that's exactly the opposite of what I'd expected to do. I must be missing the point. So when it's set to channel 1, I expected that to do channel 1 and 2 mix, but no, it puts channel 1 only on the recording. And channel 1 and 2, that's exactly the opposite of what's logical to me. But anyway, it works when it's plugged into channel 1. So if I plug something into channel 2 only, then when that's set to channel 1, this is just completely back to front, that switch. That does exactly the opposite of what I expected. So in that position, it's recording channel 1 only. So that's why we got nothing. So that's fixed. It was never a fault, it was user error, having channel 1 audio on both. like that. Okay, so that's mono sound on both channels. And I really should have realised that the audio level button, would give us what we needed. Would that have worked for the other viewfinder as well? Yes. Yes, that also displays VU meters. I don't know if you can see that. And notice that we've got an iris control here, so we can adjust the exposure very quickly. That's the sort of manual control you really need on a professional camera. And let me tell you about a job that this would have been brilliant for that I did about a year or so ago. I had to do a recording in a church, and it was quite difficult lighting. And in particular, at one point, there's an elevated area where the bell ringers normally go. I would know, because that's one of my jobs. I'm learning to become a bell ringer. And they had a bugler up there playing a bugle. And it was a sort of backlit from the windows in that area. And what I should have done was use a camera like this to preset that shot with this on a tripod, pointing at the bugler, and then I could have preset the exposure and focus and held it, and then just recorded continuously, and then when that section happened I would have had a good quality recording. Only standard definition, but believe me, that would have been better than what I got, because I was struggling with focus and exposure on equipment that was doing automatic exposure and focus in such difficult conditions. So sometimes you really do need those manual controls of something a little bit more professional. Okay, we've come to the end for today. So we had 5 pieces of equipment, and briefly, if you remember, there was the EVS 9000E, which has multiple faults and is not presently usable. There's the Beta HiFi SL-HF100, that has a couple of faults, but it does actually work as it stands. Then there's the Laserdisc player that works perfectly but needs a remote control. And there's the Minidisc recorder, which, well, it's got a mechanical fault, I think. It could be a laser fault. Perhaps if you're familiar with those machines, you might have some idea what's wrong with it. It probably isn't worth repairing. And then there's the DVCAM camera, which works really well. So hope you've enjoyed us working through those. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. Which would you rather that I worked on first? The EVS 9000 with multiple faults, but maybe it's fixable within the constraints of not having all the parts we need, or the Beta HiFi SL-HF100, because I actually have, I think, 2 scrap machines here, so I might have enough parts to get the VU meter and display working better. I'll do a poll, so you can vote on that, which you think I should work on first.